Today you have an assignment. Yes, I am assigning you all a test on how well you know your own music. But whether you pass or fail, the results of this test could serve as a giant bellwether and an indicator for whether or not the music that you are currently making has any chance of getting signed to music libraries and getting placed on TV shows, thereby making you some money. Or if your music is just destined to live out its life in the dustbin of musical history. Hello rock stars, Matt Vanderbilt here, and in today's video I'm going to share with you a very important test that could make all the difference in the world as to whether or not your music has a chance at getting placed on a TV show. And the test is very simple because it just involves you and other people listening to your music and answering one simple question. Okay, but this is a 3-part test. For the first part of this test, what I want you to do is find your 10 most recent musical products. Now, those could be instrumental cues, they could be full vocal songs. Whatever they are, take your 10 most recent tracks, and I want you to listen to each one at a time from top to bottom. And then when you get to the end of that track, I want you to answer just one question. And that question is, what genre of music did I just listen to? Note that I did not say, what genre of music did I try to write? No, your attempts and your trying means nothing for this exercise. The only thing that means anything is what the actual final product of the music was. And the kicker is you can only use one genre label. Okay, so you can't be like,
well, it's kind of partly folky, it's kind of partly this other thing, and it's got a little bit of electro swing thrown in.
No, you have to choose just one genre of music. And I will tell you why this is important later on in this video. But for now, these are the parameters. You listen to your full track, pick one genre identifier. And this is how you can tell if you pass phase 1 of the test. If you can easily pinpoint the genre with no ifs, ands, or buts about it, then your music passes this phase of the test. But if there's ever a point where you start waffling on what your genre is, then you are not passing this test. So you listen to all 10 tracks, you pick out one genre, and if it was easy for you to do that, then you pass. If you couldn't quite settle on genres and you were trying to choose from 2 or 3 or 4 different things, then you fail. I'm sorry, but you fail. But either way, whether you pass or fail, everyone moves on to phase 2 of this test. And this is where you take those same 10 tracks and give them to someone you trust, whether it's a family member or another musician or whatever. Now, they don't necessarily have to be musicians for this exercise, but if you are an instrumental cue composer, you will probably want to have phase 2 of your test involve someone who knows this side of the business, because the labels and the genres for instrumental cues are stuff that most lay people just do not know and have never heard of. But regardless of who you pick, take your 10 tracks and give them to 2 or 3 different people and tell them that they also have one question, and that is to write down one genre label for every track that they hear. Now, how do you know if you've passed phase 2 of the test? Well, it's quite simple. If you have 100% unanimous voting and everybody within your test group said the same exact genre, then congratulations, you passed. You are clearly targeting a genre with your music and you're nailing it. Good work. Now, how do you tell if you fail? Well, if the people you gave your music to came up with different answers than you did, then that's an indicator that you are not hitting the genre of music that you thought. If you and the 2 other people all came up with 3 different answers, then you got a big problem. Now, whether you've passed phase 1 and 2, or if you failed one or both of those, everybody still moves on to phase 3. And for this part of the test, what I want you to do personally is sit down in front of your music again and play the first 10 to 15 seconds. That's it. And then you stop that track right there and you answer this question. Was my genre obvious from the first 10 to 15 seconds of the track? In other words, did it start off instantly identifiable as being indie folk or electro swing or industrial rock or dramedy or tension? If you can identify it within the first 10 seconds and you also pass the other two phases, then congratulations, you are a genre wizard. Keep going, keep doing what you're doing. But if you failed at any point along the way, either you personally cannot identify your own music, or you have a different idea of what it is versus other listeners, or you cannot pick that genre out within the first 10 to 15 seconds, then these are indicators that you are not doing a very good job hammering your genre. Now, why is this all so important? Well, it's quite simple. Anytime that you pitch your music to a music library, you are most likely going to lead with some type of genre indicator. You might send an email that says, hey, so-and-so, I've got a big batch of urban dramedy. Or I've got a couple songs that fit into this shoegaze pop thing. Would you be interested in hearing them? And if that music library needs the genre of music that you are pitching, then they will most likely say, oh yeah, please, let me take a listen. But if you just come at them and say,
hey, I've got a bunch of music that's, I don't even really know what it is, but it's cool. It's kind of like this weird amalgamation of this thing meets this thing meets this thing with a little bit of this thrown in.
No library in their right mind is going to even consider listening to that music because it's pretty much a dead end for them. Now, music library owners themselves, although they are pretty well versed on a million styles of music that are out there, they don't know everything. And so there will come times in your musical career where you are pitching a style to a library that the library is unfamiliar with. And then you have to kind of educate them on what the style is and be like, this is kind of what these bands are doing, or this is the kind of music they're using on this show. And in those cases, the music library is probably super excited because if they didn't know of the genre, it probably means they don't have any of that genre. And if you can prove that there's a need for it out in the marketplace, they will probably jump all over your music. It all starts with identifying the genre. But a lot of music libraries have a submission portal where you upload your music to this automated system and you have to choose from a drop-down menu or from little bullet point things what genre your music is. And in those cases, you only get to choose one. So you have to know what genre your music is and you have to have delivered that audibly. Now, the next reason this is so important is because when music libraries deliver their music or their entire catalog to a show that they are working with, they are most likely going to divide all those tracks into little folders that are labeled with, you guessed it, the genre. Or they will give the TV production crew access to some online platform like Harvest Media or Source Audio, where again, their catalog can be searched by genre. So, because a lot of music searches start by genre labeling, it is incredibly important that you know what yours is and you are accurate with that label. So now, what can happen if you don't have an easily identifiable genre? Well, first of all, your music will probably never be signed because music libraries are not that likely to sign music that cannot easily be categorized. Furthermore, let's just say that you convinced them they needed to take this song into their catalog, and now the library says, okay, what do I do with this on my back end? Where are they going to put the song? Are they going to put it in funk? Is it going to be rock? Is it going to be pop? And if the library owner can't figure out where to put it, then where does that leave you? Which brings us to the worst case scenario where a music library does sign your music and you get overjoyed and you get optimistic by all the money and placements you could make, but the library doesn't really know what to do with it. So they can't categorize the thing. And then when a show is sifting through their databases, they will never find your track because it is unlabelable. And in those cases, your music is just destined to live in obscurity. It might as well be invisible. It is like a treasure chest that is never going to be found. So you have to know your genre. It's just as simple as that. And so I've supplied you a little test on how you can tell if whether or not you are hitting these things. But now let's talk about how you can solve this problem going forward if you have failed any of these three phases. So first of all, every time that you sit down to write music, you need need to have a plan. And part of that plan should involve what genre of music you are going to write. And it's just as simple as that. But I know far too many people, myself included in my early years, that would sit down at the computer to make music and just start going wherever the wind takes us. And at the end of the day, after 3 or 4 or 5 hours, you have a piece of music that defies labeling because you didn't have a plan and you just started chasing random directions with wherever the music or wherever the muse took you. Bad idea. Sit down to make music with a genre in mind and do not deviate from that genre. And the next thing that you can do to remedy this situation, if you are failing all phases of this test, is to not only study the genre that you are trying to write, but also study the production methods that go into it. Because it is not enough to tell yourself,
oh, I know dubstep music. I know it inside and out. I listen to it all the time.
If you don't know how to produce that music, then you are not going to make good dubstep. So you need to understand what elements go into your genre, what types of BPMs and instrumentation there are within that style. And you also need to understand how to produce that music so that it sounds like what it is supposed to sound like. So the moral of the story, you guys, if I haven't beat this horse to death already, is you need to go into every single writing session with a genre picked out and do not deviate from making that particular genre as you go through your track. This should be instantly identifiable from the first 10 to 15 seconds of pressing play, and it should be something that gets unanimous consent on, that anybody that you ask, hey, what style of music is this? They will be able to tell you with the same exact answer. So please, everyone, do take this test. And if you're feeling frisky, then please, in the comments below, let me know if you passed or failed this test. And then also let me know if your musical history up until now has been full of successes, or you just hitting roadblocks, beating your head against the wall because your music is not getting signed or placed. All right, now let's finish this video off with a quick joke from the old button here.
How does a tree check on its online accounts? It logs in.
It logs in. Oh, good God. All right, Rockstar, see you later. Toodles.